Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. The stock market and the crypto market both showing signs of life today with some interesting volatility. This coming on the heels of what is expected to be a rate cut from the Fed literally tomorrow. There's debate, assuming this is going to happen, and it's broadly accepted that the answer is yes. It's being debated, though, if that indeed is going to happen. Are we going to see it reduced by a quarter of a percent? A 0.5%? And I'm not even going to bother predicting what the cut is going to be if it's cut. I just anticipate that if this is indeed going to happen, whatever you think rate cut is likely to do, whether you think that that's a bad omen and it's ultimately going to mean the market goes down or up, even if you're right and it's bad omen and market is going to go down, I still think that there's plenty of opportunity to run before such a thing occurs. There's historic precedent for that as well. But I'm also going to share with you perspective from somebody very popular in the world of finance, including the crypto community, but not just the crypto community, Fundstrat's Tom Lee. And he has a strong opinion on this matter. And he says, well, yeah, under certain circumstances, when you get a rate cut, and there's historic precedent for that too, and he acknowledges that. You absolutely could expect that in relatively short order, even if it's not literally instantaneously, maybe it's half a year, whatever it's going to be, maybe you do see things turn upside down. But under the circumstances we see now, he argues, no, that's not what is most probable to expect. And the reason that this all matters is because this is a macro world that we live in. So even if you're like me, and I know many of you are, and you care way more about XRP specifically than what's happening in the stock market or maybe Bitcoin specifically, it all matters. It is all tied together. If this is going to indeed go this way, it's more reason to be extra excited for what is going to happen to XRP holders. And I'm going to share with you perspective from multiple XRP chart analysts in this video, including one who I think is among the very best in the world of crypto. And he is saying that, a $10 price target for XRP, that's actually conservative. And he firmly believes that this thing is going to blast off in short order. There's another analyst who's warning, do not sell your XRP here. So I'll share with you multiple perspectives. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 10:12 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. So by the time some of you are listening to this, if it's in the morning, you already know what the news is. Actually, I can't remember exactly what time it comes. Maybe it was an afternoon. I actually can't recall off the top of my head. A lot of time when there's CPI numbers, I think it's typically like my time, 8:30 Central, but I'm actually thinking a lot of time the FOMC stuff is actually maybe early afternoon. And I didn't check before recording this video. But either way, we're going to know in short order here. But as I record this, XRP 58 cents, a Bitcoin at $60,532, and you've got the Crypto Fear and Greed Index at 45 out of 100. So it moved up, so people are less fearful, but we're still not up to neutral quite yet. It will be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. And so a lot of people are expecting volatility, and that won't surprise me. I'm not even going to bother predicting, though, not just if there's going to be a cut, whether it's a quarter percent or 0.5%, whatever. I'll just wait and see. I'm also not even going to bother predicting if this is a sell the news event. Now, a lot of people think that it will be, and that's plausible. That really could be the case. There's been a broad expectation that there's going to be a rate cut. A lot of people expecting, yes, indeed, it is going to come. And a lot of times when what is expected to happen finally hits, when the news breaks, that's the moment that people start selling, securing some level of profit. So if that happens, I'll not be surprised. But even if that's the case, that does not mean that it's the end of the world. These types, the FOMC days, they're just volatile. They just are. So even if you do see that it's a sell the news event, and maybe it will be, you're going to see a rebound at some point. And historically, Q4 is absolutely fantastic for the stock market and crypto anyway. So if you're a betting man, I'm just saying. Here's a post from Seth Golden. Seth Golden is a hedge fund consultant and chief market strategist for Finum Group. And he's optimistic. He wrote in part, if you have plans to sell tomorrow's rate cut, plan to sell to me, as I'm your willing buyer. So he thinks that even if it's a sell the news event, so be it. Anticipation is from him very clearly that would still be moving back to the upside rather quickly. There was this post from Invest Answers, and like I said, there's been lots of volatility today. Not all bad. Here you have from Invest Answers chart analyst, S&P 500 hits a new all-time high. Markets are soaring as the 50 basis point rate cuts, that's 0.5% rate cut, fuels optimism. Are we in for a bull run? And so, right or wrong, the market thinks that a rate cut is good. So we'll see here, but it's been a while since we've had a new high for the S&P 500. I think it was at some point in July, if my memory's serving me anyway. So nice to see that, especially in the month of September, which is historically not good for the S&P 500 and historically not good for Bitcoin. Although last year was good for Bitcoin. So, 3 out of the last 13 years or something like that, it's been good for Bitcoin. So usually not, but sometimes the improbable happens. And maybe because it's a year like this and with the anticipation of this rate cut, who knows? There's also this post from chart analyst Jelly, and he said, entire market looks to be gearing up for a sell the news candle tomorrow. One of the most important FOMC events in a long time. I'd hate to see you guys lose your coins due to the likely volatility. Easy on the leverage. Sit on your hands and enjoy the show tomorrow. Oh yeah, well, I'll tell you what, chart analyst Jelly, not a problem for me because my strategy is quite simple. Once I buy stuff, I do not do anything. I literally do nothing. And I'm good at doing nothing when it comes to investing. A lot of people have trouble with that. They feel like they must do something. If it's going down, I got to act, or something's running, I need to sell here and buy there. And nope. People that do that, data shows they don't do as well as the people that just sit on their hands after they buy stuff. So, all that to say, when this thing finally goes, yes, I'll be happy to sell my XRP at a much higher price than it is now, along with the rest of my crypto holdings. But ain't nobody going to get it from me cheap. And if that means that I never get to sell it and some of my holdings go to zero, so be it. I don't expect that I'm literally going to profit from every single investment that I make. That wouldn't be realistic, right? And that's fine. Anyway, but here's a post from chart analyst Credible Crypto. And he said, ZERP it to 75 cents with haste. And for those of you who are newer in the XRP community, you might not know that a ZERP is a name for XRP. I don't actually know how that came to be, but I don't really see anybody call XRP ZERPs anymore, so that's kind of rare, but it is what it is. And so, but anyway, point is, he thinks in the short term, we could see XRP move up to 75 cents. Now, that's interesting because that's one of the two levels to the upside that all sorts of analysts have been calling for, roughly 65 cents and roughly 75 cents. And if you can break through both of those, that's when it's like, psh, I've seen that from tons of different analysts. Now, what he squiggled here does indicate that he thinks it's totally plausible that first we do see XRP have a move to the downside of maybe like 54 cents or so, but then right on to the upside. Now, that is the short-term price action that we're talking about. And it's fun to see that, he thinks that that's a possibility because I do consider him to be among the best of chart analysts in all of crypto. But I'm also even more curious about what he thinks on a higher time frame. So the big picture. Where's XRP actually going to go? And he is one of the biggest XRP bulls in the space. Take a look at what he posted just this morning. He said, and on higher time frames, this near 7-year compression will be coming to an end soon. The mother of all bull flags. Literally nothing else like it in this space. Partly because most of the coins here haven't even existed for 7 years, LOL. When the old guard wakes up, it's going to be legendary. And that is correct. What has happened with XRP, even from a chart perspective, and I'm not a chart guy, but I just have gathered this from chart analysts, this is unprecedented. I don't know that there's any other example that has ever occurred in crypto that's even remotely similar to this. 7 years of consolidation? And so you can see what he's got drawn here. I mean, symmetrical triangle. You keep seeing that from every reputable analyst under the sun. They'll draw lines that are either the same or very similar. And they're like, yeah, it's been almost 7 years. Eventually, because look, this thing's been coiling inside of this for almost 7 years. You can go back to the last all-time high where I'm circling for those of you looking at the screen. And this typically, and again, I'm not a chart guy, I'm not pretending to be, but I do know this. Typically, before you reach the apex of a symmetrical triangle, the thing breaks to the upside or downside. Given that we're in a bull market, I would strongly anticipate a move to the upside. So I can't imagine a world where XRP never hits a new all-time high ever again. It totally makes sense to me that given the SEC nonsense and the fact that 2 bull runs ago increased 80,000%, yeah, I can totally understand that it needed some time to consolidate. That doesn't seem unreasonable. That doesn't sound crazy. But it can't and won't range here forever. And so either we're all wrong and XRP goes to zero, and I'd say that's a low probability, just my humble opinion, or we're right, and at some unknown point in the future, it does hit a new all-time high. One of those two things will happen. It's a binary bet for me, and everything that happens in the interim, ultimately to me, won't matter. I follow it and I talk about it because it's interesting since I have skin in the game, but in the end, it's not going to matter. All this volatility that I myself have been living through for almost 7 years, in the end won't matter. And so many of you have been around for years as well. And in the end, either we're right or we're wrong. It's not going to matter, but I've never had such a strong conviction. I don't think that we're all taking crazy pills here. I do believe this actually makes sense. And everything on a macro scale, a macro level, it is panning out in such a way that you would hope and want it to in order for this to ultimately go. And so you do need to see expansion in the market. You need to see money flow into small cap stocks. And, because you never have had an alt season without that. So we do need to see that, but there's good reason to believe that is going to occur. Liquidity also increasing. That is indeed provably the case here. But there's a reason Credible Crypto here said, this is the mother of all bull flags. That is some, I'd say, deserved optimism here, pertaining specifically to XRP. And somebody named Prison Mike on X had a question. He said, what's your conservative target for this cycle? Low two-digit easy, I guess, after 7 years of accumulation, question mark. And he simply said, yup. So he's saying that 2 digits, that would be $10 minimum, that would be conservative. And I gotta admit, I've been wondering that. I'm not gonna make a price prediction because it would be disingenuous since I'm not a chart guy. I'd just be making up out of thin air, it'd be worthless. But I can't help but wonder. Well, think about it too, because the all-time high for XRP, it was a little shy of $4. So, if you're talking about tripling from there, that's not exactly crazy, Like we've seen that with ETH, we've seen that with Bitcoin in previous cycles when there was less money in them, and sure, like who knows? Maybe some of these analysts that are calling for higher targets, they'll end up being proven correct, whether that's $20 or 25. I don't know. I'm not a prediction guy. It's not my game. I'm sitting here wondering, and I'm just being honest about the fact that I'm wondering just like the rest of you. But I am absolutely thinking that what's most likely, and I think it's reasonable and logical, is that we're going to see a new all-time high and we're going to see price discovery, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I certainly am counting on that. There's also this post from Rob Gulka, wrote to him and said, do you see XRP doing what it did in 2017, hitting a high, then consolidating for 5 to 6 months, then having a blow off top, or just a gradual climb to all-time highs? Now, that's a good question. I've wondered that out loud on this channel many times. Credible Crypto wrote, depends on how soon it breaks out there, to be honest. Okay, so I'll keep you apprised of what his perspective is moving forward. But just if you look at the last 2 cycles, there have been 2 major runs in each of the last 2 cycles. So there was one in 2017, whenever it started running, March or April, whenever it was, when it went from half a penny to like 42 cents before it went back down for like half a year. And then it ran back up again in December. And then for the next market cycle after that, it started to run, I think it was the beginning part of November in 2020. Went from 20-something cents up to over 80 cents very quickly. And then there was the SEC nonsense, and it went back down to like, 16, 17 cents. And then, and think about it, I mean, it's close to a half year later, started running again, hitting its cycle high in April of 2021 of $2. So 2 major impulses. So, and it didn't go up in a straight line even in those, but I'm just saying those were 2 major ones. So maybe that's going to happen again here. I don't know. I've like I said, I've wondered out loud if that could indeed be the case. And maybe it will. There's historic precedent for that, obviously. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just saying, like, if this thing runs up to like $4 or $5 and then starts to cool off, I'm not going to be freaking out. I'll just say that. I will not. I won't be surprised if it doesn't perfectly go up in one straight line. That's not how this works typically. There's also this post from chart analyst Crypto Insight UK, and he said, I would guess XRP heads to 66 cents soon. It seems liquidity is building up there. Shorts jumped in the market yesterday with force. Will price move up and wreck them? And so he also thinks in the short term, and that was the other roughly key level that I was referencing earlier. I see all sorts of analysts talk about that. That's got to break. And then roughly that 75 cent range. And so he thinks that there's good reason to suppose that could be happening sooner than later. He also shared this. XRP Dominance had its highest close yesterday since August 9th. Monthly looks like it's turning up too. Decent volume and about to get a bullish cross on the RSI. Now, remember that we were hearing for the first half of the year, XRP, it just keeps trending down against Bitcoin. XRP Dominance, it just keeps going down. And what was I saying leading up to that? What I said was that markets find bottoms. As you can pick a metric. You can talk about XRP Dominance. You can talk about how XRP is priced against Bitcoin, for example, and we certainly have been doing that. And look at this chart, though. This is a market cap XRP Dominance percentage chart. It bottomed in June. That's where it bottomed against Bitcoin also. And it's just been trending up ever since then. Markets find bottom. I mean, unless you actually think, if you're one of the irrational XRP haters, and you just think this thing's going to run to zero because reasons, okay. But that doesn't actually make sense. That's not how this works. You're telling me that one of the most useful cryptos in the entire asset class, which businesses use on a daily basis, which has a huge community, continued adoption, new bells and whistles being implemented, all that, more developers always trending to the upside, right? With all that, that's the one that goes to zero. The one that's always been in the top 10 coins by market cap for over a decade, which is only true of 3 coins in existence. It's XRP, ETH, and Bitcoin. That's the one that goes to zero, you think? That is the stupidest damn position. That doesn't make a damn bit of sense. And so here, it does look like what is most probable is that we actually did finally have that bottom in June. But either way, because we were hoping that other, on the way down, that other points in time would have been bottoms and they weren't. All I'm saying is no matter what, eventually the market finds a bottom unless you actually think it goes to zero. That does not compute though. Eventually, people are going to figure out, and I think some people are figuring this out, XRP is probably undervalued compared to the rest of the market. That's why it's been doing what it's been doing the last few months. Exactly why. Markets figure this stuff out. They find the opportunities. There's also this post. This is from chart analyst Crypto Michael. And he's sharing his opinion here. He says, do not sell your XRP here. Current sentiment, it'll just dump back down again. It always does. Well, he says in response to that sentiment, not this time. 7-year pennant on the verge of breakout. Watch. And this, that's a concept I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks or so in particular, maybe even longer than that. I've been saying I understand the sentiment from XRP holders. When the market goes down, the whole XRP goes down with it, but then the market rebounds, and then even if XRP rebounds a bit, not as much, or the rest of the market takes off more, and then it gets even more and more lopsided. And I get that. That's been happening literally for years, as the charts show. But like I said a second ago, markets find bottoms. And that hasn't been the case for the last few, people still aren't used to it, but for the last 3 months, XRP has been substantially outperforming. And so that's why when Crypto Michael here is sharing the sentiment, the current sentiment is, it'll just dump back down like it always is. Well, he says not this time. And I would say be careful, because I'm not so sure that's what's most probable at this point either way. Because XRP is showing uncharacteristic strength, the type of strength that we literally haven't seen for years when compared to the rest of the market. But here we are in this moment. It's pretty amazing, frankly. And so that leads us to this. And I encourage you to listen to the end, because this is an interesting perspective, especially if you understand the importance of the macro environment being in a certain way in order for XRP to run, then you're really going to appreciate this. This is a good way to cap off this video. And there's also lots of discussion, and I'm glad there is, as to whether or not a rate cut would be good for the crypto asset class. And I know the last 3 times it's happened, the answer is no, it wasn't good. But as I've said before, there are also many times where rate cuts have been good. So then maybe a more intelligent question would be, is this the type of environment where if you have a rate cut, we should think that what's most probable is that it will be good? And I don't have strong conviction, to be honest with you, but I want to share with you diverse opinions on the channel. And I will tell you that Fundstrat's Tom Lee, who is referenced in this article, he actually does think that a rate cut here would actually be good. And he understands it's not always good. Okay? So he's not somebody that's just blindly saying a thing. So you guys can decide if you think his argument's persuasive or not. I find it interesting. So anyway, there's this headline from Daily Hodl. Fundstrat's Tom Lee forecasts multi-week market rally says investors can be pretty confident over next year. Fundstrat's Tom Lee is anticipating several weeks of good performance for the stock market following this week's Federal Open Market Committee FOMC meeting. In a new interview on CNBC, Lee says that while investors are cautious about markets due to uncertainty surrounding the upcoming U.S. election, economic data is nonetheless leaning in favor of risk assets. And folks, when he says risk assets, we're talking about the stock market specifically and crypto assets. Those are considered risk assets. If there's an appetite for risk, money flows into crypto and the stock market. And if there's a big enough appetite for risk, then you go further out the risk curve into the small cap stocks and the small cap coins. Anyway, piece continues. The veteran investor predicts that after the FOMC meeting, which is expected to conclude with at least a 25 basis point rate cut, and again, that's 0.25%, the markets will continue to trade well for multiple weeks afterward. And here's a quote from Fundstrat's Tom Lee. I think if viewers are sort of confused, I think that's what the next 8 weeks are going to be like until Election Day. I think it's a very challenging period because no one can have conviction until they really know who's in the White House. But there are some positive supports coming into play, and this week is the Fed meeting. We know the Fed is going to make some cuts, and with the inflation data being supportive and the labor markets needing some support, I think it's going to give the markets some confidence. So I think we do kind of trade well into that meeting and maybe even the week or two after, end quote. Well, I'll tell you what, we're certainly trading well up to this. He's been proven to be correct about that. If you're looking at the S&P 500, specifically today, as I noted, it just hit a new all-time high, which, if I'm correct, and you can fact-check me on this, but I think we hadn't seen a new all-time high since July. And then even Bitcoin had a bit of a jump today. So, okay, like I said, there's some volatility today here. And by the way, as far as the election, that's true. When people don't know exactly what to expect, it's hard for them to have confidence when it comes to investing. And data does support that. The good news is, and I've shared this data recently as well, regardless of who gets elected, data shows that whether it's Democrat administration or a Republican administration, the market performs about the same regardless. And it performs best when there's gridlock, when there's a divided Congress. So maybe one party has the House, one has the Senate. When there's gridlock there as a result, the market likes that. The market doesn't like the government doing stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, like, that's sage wisdom. Like, the less government does, the more I'm like, okay. Like, I'll take more of you doing nothing. More gridlock, please. Because too frequently, when stuff is done, it's stupid. But I won't go off on a tangent on that. I'm just saying the market thinks that. And I'm just noting I happen to generally agree. A lot of times I would rather see them do nothing than something. And so the market does perform best historically when there is gridlock. But all that to say, regardless of who wins, even if there's an initial fear in like the day or two after, whatever, once the market at least knows what it can expect for the next several years, it'll go back to just doing what it was doing now. It'll move to the upside. If that's what's going to happen anyway. And, I think that's the type of environment that we're likely in right now. But anyway, piece continues. Lee also says that historically, markets for risk assets not only do well after rate cuts when not in recession, but also after presidential elections. Did you hear that, folks? Let me read that one more time. This is relevant here. Lee also says that historically, markets for risk assets not only do well after rate cuts, that's right, do well after rate cuts when not in recession, but also after presidential elections. That's the environment we're in now, folks. The strategist believes that the market should still rally no matter who wins the election in November. And he said, quote, I think in the near term, we're losing visibility, and when you don't have visibility, people get scared and sit on their hands. But over the next 12 months, I think investors should be pretty confident. When the Fed has cut rates while in a soft landing or no landing, the win ratio, or markets higher 6, 9, 12 months later, is almost 100%. Folks, that's the relevant portion right there. He is arguing, after looking into the data, that when we are in an environment such as the one that we're in now, especially if you're talking about an election year, it's almost a 100% hit rate, that if you look 6, 9, 12 months out from that, things are better, markets higher. And then he says, quote, and we also know post-election markets almost always rally, so the November through December looks pretty good. I think the policies of both candidates are good enough for markets to do well next year. So I think we might have turbulence now, but it looks pretty good after that, end quote. And that's him right there on the screen. And again, historically, Q4 looks pretty good. And you can even look back 4 years ago, different election cycle, and the 4 years before that, we had a green Q4 for Bitcoin across the board for each of those 3 months in Q4 for the last 2 election cycles. So hopefully we'll have a repeat of that. That would be fantastic. So take it for what it's worth. I just want to share diverse perspectives as it pertains to this. Like I said, I don't have terribly strong conviction. I think that he has a compelling argument here. But either way, I think that we'll have enough time pass and enough excitement in markets that even if there is a pullback after a rate cuts, which probably are going to happen tomorrow, there should still be enough time for us to have a proper crypto blow off top. That's the hope, right? That's the dream, right? So anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap up there. But this is such an exciting time to be in crypto. It's such an I know so many people have been scared recently, and it doesn't make sense to be scared. It really doesn't. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.